You are surrounded by people. You are at a party, or in a meeting, or sitting next to someone you've known for years. And yet somewhere underneath all of that noise, there is a silence that doesn't go away. A quiet, hollow feeling that has no obvious cause. You smile, you speak, you go through all the motions, but the feeling stays. That feeling has a name, and it is not the same thing as being alone. Loneliness is not a count of the people around you. It is a state your brain enters when it decides that your social connections are not enough, not deep enough, not safe enough, not real enough. And once your brain makes that decision, something starts to shift. Not just emotionally, biologically. What chronic loneliness actually does to your brain is one of the most unsettling findings in modern neuroscience, and it begins long before you notice anything is wrong. John Cacioppo was a neuroscientist at the University of Chicago who spent over 2 decades studying loneliness. Not the passing kind, not the loneliness of a quiet weekend or a missed call. He was studying the kind that persists, the kind that becomes background noise. What he found was this: chronic loneliness does not just feel bad. It rewires the brain to expect threat. In a lonely brain, the threat detection system, centered in a small almond-shaped structure called the amygdala, becomes hyperactive, overclocked. Your brain starts scanning the environment for danger with far more intensity than it did before. A neutral expression on someone's face reads as cold. An unanswered message reads as rejection. A crowded room reads as a place where you do not belong. Your brain is not being irrational. It is doing exactly what it was built to do. It just cannot tell the difference between being genuinely unsafe and being socially disconnected. Here is why that matters. Your nervous system does not distinguish between physical threats and social ones. Cacioppo's research showed that the pain of loneliness activates the same neural pathways as physical pain. The same regions light up. The same alarm systems fire. When you feel shut out, your brain processes it the way it would process being hurt. This is not metaphor. This is measurable, repeatable neuroscience. So what happens when that alarm stays on? Your brain begins to reorganize itself around a simple assumption. The world is not safe. People are not safe. And to protect you, it starts making decisions you never consciously agreed to. Sleep is one of the first things to change. Cacioppo found that lonely individuals experience more micro-awakenings during the night, brief moments where the brain partially rouses, scanning for threat, then settles again. You may not remember any of them, but each one interrupts the deep, restorative stages of sleep your brain needs to consolidate memory, regulate emotion, and repair itself. Over time, this fragmented sleep does not just leave you tired. It leaves your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making, impulse control, and emotional regulation, running at a deficit. Which means the very part of your brain you need to think clearly about your relationships is the first part that loneliness degrades. There is a second shift happening at the same time, and it is subtler but just as significant. Lonely brains become more sensitive to social threat and less sensitive to social reward. In other words, your brain gets better at detecting rejection and worse at registering connection. Research by Cacioppo and his colleagues found that lonely individuals show heightened neural responses to images of social threat, a turn back, a cold stare, an exclusion, and blunted responses to images of warmth, acceptance, and belonging. Think about what that means in practice. Someone reaches out to you, and you do not quite feel it. Someone invites you somewhere, and part of you waits for the catch. A kind word lands, but somewhere below the surface, your brain quietly files it under. Probably not real. This is not pessimism. This is your threat detection system rewriting the rules of how social information gets processed. Cacioppo called this hypervigilance to social threat, and it creates one of the cruelest loops in all of psychology. The more lonely you feel, the more your brain scans for rejection. The more it scans for rejection, the more rejection it finds, or imagines. The more rejection it finds, the more it withdraws. And the more it withdraws, the lonelier you become. You are not spiraling because something is wrong with you. You are spiraling because your brain is following a logic that made perfect sense for most of human evolution. Here is what that logic is built on. For roughly 99% of human history, being cut off from your social group was not just uncomfortable, it was fatal. No shelter, no protection, no food sharing, no one to warn you when the predator came. Isolation was a death sentence, and your brain evolved to treat it like one. The discomfort of loneliness was not a bug. It was an alarm, a biological signal designed to push you back toward your group before the separation killed you. The problem is that the modern world has changed faster than evolution has. You can be cut off from genuine human connection in a city of 10 million people. You can have 500 contacts and feel like no one really knows you. The alarm still fires. The brain still reads it as threat. But the prescribed solution, rejoin the group, is no longer simple or obvious, or even fully available in the way it once was. And so, the alarm keeps ringing. What does that do to the body? More than most people realize. Steve Cole, a genomics researcher at UCLA, took Cacioppo's work a step further and looked at what chronic loneliness does at the cellular level. What he found reshaped the field. Cole discovered that loneliness alters the expression of genes involved in immune function. Specifically, lonely individuals show upregulation of genes associated with inflammation, the immune system's blunt force response to threat, and downregulation of genes associated with antiviral defense. In plain terms, chronic loneliness tells your immune system to prepare for physical injury rather than infection. It is as if your body, reading the brain's threat signal, decides that if you are isolated and in danger, you are more likely to be wounded than sick, so it shifts resources accordingly. The result is a body that is chronically inflamed and less equipped to fight viruses. This is why the research consistently finds that chronic loneliness is associated with higher rates of cardiovascular disease, accelerated cognitive decline, and a shortened lifespan. The numbers are striking. Some meta-analyses have estimated that the health impact of chronic loneliness is comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Not because loneliness is a character flaw, but because your brain and body were never designed to sustain that alarm signal indefinitely. Now here's the part that almost nobody talks about. Here is the counterintuitive truth buried inside all of this research. The solution is not simply more social contact. When Cacioppo's team studied interventions designed to reduce loneliness, they found that simply increasing the number of social interactions did not reliably help. What mattered was not quantity, it was the quality of the expectation going in. Lonely individuals who were helped to reinterpret ambiguous social signals, to read a neutral face as neutral rather than cold, to interpret silence as ordinary rather than rejection, showed measurable reductions in loneliness even before their social circumstances changed. The brain's threat filter was recalibrated first. The social world then looked different through it. This is an important distinction. It means that the loneliness trap is not primarily about your circumstances. It is about the interpretive lens your brain has adopted, and that lens is not fixed. It was learned, and what was learned can, with effort and with the right kind of support, be slowly unlearned. Julianne Holt-Lundstad, a psychologist at Brigham Young University, whose research has been cited by governments and health organizations worldwide, has called loneliness one of the most urgent public health issues of our time. Not because people are spending more time physically alone, though in many societies they are, but because the depth and quality of connection that the brain actually needs to feel safe appears to be declining. Your brain needs to feel known, not seen by many, but known by some. There is a difference between visibility and intimacy, and the nervous system, at its core, is looking for evidence of the latter. So when you are in a room full of people and the hollow feeling does not go away, that is not you being ungrateful or broken or dramatic. That is your brain running an ancient calculation, measuring not the number of warm bodies nearby, but the depth of the signal they are sending, and finding it insufficient. The science suggests something both humbling and quietly hopeful. Your brain's capacity for connection did not disappear. It went into a protective crouch. It started filtering harder, expecting less, and bracing more. The threat response is real. The inflammation is real. The sleep disruption is real. But underneath all of it, the need that triggered the alarm in the first place, the deep, evolved biological need to be known by another person, that need is still intact. You walked into a room full of people and felt completely alone. Now you know why. And now you know that the feeling is not a verdict on who you are. It is a signal from a brain that has not yet found what it is still, at its core, looking for.